Hello and welcome back to the NFL DFS slate breakdown for Monday Night Football. We have the Browns at the Bengals. It's going to be a good game. We will break it down. But first, I'm your host, Tyler Weeman at FlatTyler83. And this show is brought to you by LineStar. We will go over and we will use the LineStar app to research this slate. Come join us. We have a free 7-day trial through the App Store, Android or iOS App Store. If you've never used us before, download us there. 7 days free, and it does give you access to the website and the app. So let's dive in here. All right, we got 42-point total. It is a cool evening in Denver. It's going to be around 40 degrees at kickoff and mid-30s, I believe, in most of the game. Position by position, starting with quarterback, we got Bo Nix and Jameis Winston. Now, neither quarterback is in great spot, but Bo Nix at least has some rushing upside. So I do prefer to go that way. We've seen solid ceiling from both the quarterbacks so far this year, though. So I think both are absolutely in consideration here. And if you want to pivot off Bo Nix because he's coming at super high ownership to Winston, I think you're fine doing that. Winston, we've seen floor, low teens with a high of 30. He can really sling the ball if he is forced to. And I think he is going to be forced to in this spot, but it's versus a tough defense. So I don't expect the situation where he's going to be able to throw for over 300 and 2 or 3 touchdowns, which he really needs to get to push that 30 point mark. Now, I would absolutely kind of expect him in the 1 to 2 touchdown with maybe 250 yards situation. I think that is something totally doable for him. After all, over his last 4 starts, he's averaging 295 yards a game. So he's been very good. He's also been averaging interception a game. Those interceptions are still up a bit, which also leads credence to the Broncos D. Now, let's get into running back spot. This is pretty much the ugliest running back slate I think I've seen on a single game slate. One of the things I do want to point out is over the last 5 games, so it shows Nick Chubb has been a very good, he's in a very good spot for RB1s. However, if you look, it is due to the receiving game. They're averaging 2 targets more, 1.25 reception, 17.5 receiving yards extra, and they're actually minus in rushing yards. So while it shows Nick Chubb is in a good spot because on the team defense tool, when you examine it, it's actually a poor spot. They're not giving up much rushing yards. They are, however, getting beat in the receiving game, which is Jerome Ford. Now, Jerome Ford is playing a lot, but really not doing much. However, I think there is some interest in taking him purely for that receiving game upside because that receiving game work is going to go to him. It's not going to Chubb. Maybe Chubb picks up 1 extra target, which would mean maybe he gets 2 targets. But most likely, 1 target, 1 reception, couple yards, and that's all we got for Chubb. He gets 15 rushes for 50 yards or something like that. So for me, I'm out on Chubb. I would be playing very little of him. On the other side, we got Javonte Williams. He is still the lead back, but he's not playing a ton, nor is he getting a ton of work. Last week, 8 carries. Didn't do much with it. 2 receptions. So, 10 total touches, 13 total touches in a game. They dominated the Falcons. The week before that, only 3 touches. He really hasn't gotten much work for weeks now. So I think you can play Javonte if you want at 6,800. You're hoping for that touchdown. He is going to get some work. He'll be in and around the goal line. But there's also Jaleel McLaughlin, who is a little more explosive. Don't mind taking McLaughlin over Javonte. Then you have Audric Estime, who it looked like he could be sliding into the RB1 spot, but since that 14 carry game, he went 9 touches and 3 touches. So I think that Audric Estime experience where he is possibly taking the RB1 spot is over. He was down to only like 7% of snaps last week. So I think his only path is in a Broncos blowout. So that's another one of those storybook type plays where if you're playing, say, an onslaught Broncos 5-1 type lineup, maybe you want to consider Estime, because in a big blowout, it's likely going to be Estime getting the late work, as that's when we have seen him get real work before, is only pretty much blowouts. Jaleel McLaughlin, Javonte Williams, both are, you're able to consider, as well as Jerome Ford. Outside of that, I'm pretty much not playing any of this backfield. So, getting over to the wide receiver spot, Courtland Sutton is far and away the king of this slate as far as the wide receivers. He is the wide receiver 1. Bo Nix has been loving him lately over the last 5 weeks. He's absolutely been killing it. Has either a touchdown or 100 yards in every single week but one over this last 5 weeks. And the targets are up there. He's averaging 9.3. I would expect him to get 10-ish targets tonight versus a defense that's very beatable. Cleveland's ranked 25th, allowing 162.4 receiving yards. 26, allowing 1.3 receiving touchdowns per game to wide receiver over the last 9. So Courtland Sutton firmly planted as, a core piece, I would say, on this slate. On the other side, WR1 will be Jerry Jeudy. Dude's been doing very well with Tillman out. 11 targets, 6 targets, 11, 8, 5. He's really, over the last 4 weeks, averaging 9 targets a game, getting almost 95 yards total per game, but it is inflated a little bit from this 142-yard game. But consistently going to, 70-plus yards, a touchdown is absolutely possible, as he is behind Njoku over the last 8 weeks for second on the team with targets. I think Jerry Jeudy is absolutely interesting. Also got to bring up Elijah Moore here. So Moore, Tillman, and Jeudy all were right around the same kind of targets over, since Winston has taken over. Moore fell off a little bit last week, but there's still no Cedric Tillman, and with that, I think you got to consider going Moore's way as well, just because, look, the target tree just condenses to Njoku, Moore, and Jeudy. And then Jerome Ford, maybe. Outside of that, there's not really many targets going anywhere else. I think he is in an interesting spot. Now, Jerry Jeudy is in a prime spot over the last 5 weeks. Wide receiver 1s are 28th versus Denver's 28th versus wide receiver 1s. The rest of the secondary has been good at stopping the 2, 3, and so on. On the Broncos side, the ancillary guys, Vele is going to be on the field a decent amount. He gets solid targets. I don't mind going there. He has a solid floor, but there's not a ton of ceiling. So he's not really somebody I would be considering for a captain spot, but a filler spot. I do like him. He can get it done. 80 yards last week, 66 the week before, 39 and a tutty the week before. But for him to really crush, he needs a touchdown. Over 100 is not likely for him, but, 3 to 6 receptions and 30 to 80 yards is very, very possible. Other guys, Troy Franklin playing around 40%. He was in college with Bo Nix. They definitely have some chemistry. They've been used together. There's some solid upside. don't mind throwing in some Troy Franklin. And if you want to get wild and go with him at captain, you absolutely could, because there's big play upside there as well. Little Jordan Humphrey, Marvin Mims are also in that mix. Bo Nix has really been spreading it out, so there's a lot of guys you can go to on that Broncos side. Now, getting over to tight end, we got David Njoku. He is the cornerstone of the tight end spot in this game, and clearly the top option. However, Denver has been very tough versus tight end. We do have a small target tree this week, though, and he's been averaging 7 targets a game with Winston. So while he isn't, Judy levels of targets or even really more level of targets, he is a key factor, and he does have the most red zone targets over the last 8 weeks on the Browns, so definitely need to consider him. Jordan Akins also is sprinkled in a little bit. 4, 4, 4, 1, 4. So in games where Winston's playing, Akins has got 3, 4 targets, something like that. He's averaging 3.4 on the season. You can definitely consider him at that spot, and there is absolutely a chance that he's used towards the red zone. So he could be an interesting flyer to throw out there. The Broncos receivers really have not, or tight ends really have not been used very much. So can you use these guys? Yes, but you're pretty much touchdown or bust. Can it happen? Yes. Is it likely? No. Then getting over to the defensive side, Broncos have the better defense. They are also in a better matchup versus the Browns, who are absolutely willing to air it out. While the Broncos are throwing a lot, they're not throwing as much as the Browns. I do like the Broncos defense in this spot. Selfishly, I hope they fail miserably, though, because I need them to fail in my season-long league to be able to try and make the playoffs here. So, boo Broncos, but for DFS, I got to say that I do like them, and I hope they don't go too nuts. Kicker-wise, both kickers firmly in play. You also do have to remember here that this game is in Denver, so it is in elevation. Those longer kicks are a little bit easier at elevation. The other thing is Dustin Hopkins has not been Dustin Hopkins lately. He's averaging 62% on his field goals over the last 4 weeks, 71% on the season. He's had a rough go. In, 2 of the last 4 weeks, he has missed kicks. Missed 2 field goal attempts versus the Saints. Missed 1 against the Chargers. Does it happen again tonight? I don't know. He was better last game, but there is definitely a little bit of worry. But I think both kickers with this elevation absolutely need to be considered. Also, both defenses are solid, especially towards the red zone area. So I think kickers could come into play for sure. And Will Lutz has shown some real big games. So absolutely interested in both guys. That'll do it for us today, guys. A quick one. We will dive into it later this week with more stuff for week 14 as we move on in the NFL season. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for joining me. I hope you guys had a great weekend. Peace.